Welcome to the Smoking Word. Welcome to the Smoking Word.
What up, everybody? Your boy Hoya Rock, and we are back. It took a minute. I've been off for a quick second because I had to regroup, so I had to come back hard, and I had to come back Queens. And not only that, I had to come back Queens, I had to come back OG hardcore Queens, and I just wanted to connect the dots. Listen, everybody, welcome to the Smokin' Word podcast. If I had more room here, Marcos, I would stand up and give you a wave, standing ovation. But I want to tell me if I'm saying your last name right. Marcos Siega.
That's exactly right, man.
Listen, everybody. Bad trip and amongst everything. But I'm going to start with bad trip. Listen, welcome to the fucking Smokin' Word podcast. And on the real, you were on my mind years ago because I got this thing for everybody out there. This one is a bugged out one for me because you're a part of my DNA, like it or not. Marcos, for everybody, I want to give a quick recap so people could understand what's what, and we'll get into it. When I was a kid in the neighborhood, there was a studio, and in this neighborhood, it was Queens neighborhood. In the most unlikely block to have a studio, there was a studio. When they told me, I hooked up with a couple of other like-minded hardcore kids from the neighborhood. They're like, yo, we have a band. We're going to go jam. I said, oh, there's a studio. They go, yeah, we're going to go to the studio. Boom. They go, yo, yeah, the guys from Bad Trip own it. I go, wow, this dudes from a band, they own a studio? To me, it was so unheard of. Long story short, my first encounter with a studio was your studio. I never been in a studio before. Everybody, I got a band. All right, so the fellas that used to hang out at the park, they were like, yo, we're going to go rehearse. Let's go jam. And I remember going to your studio for the first time ever. And I don't remember the name of it. Could you tell you, what was the name of the studio?
Yeah, man. Bell Studio.
Bell, oh my God. But again, long intro, but Marcos, listen, we're going to go into it. But besides that, that's to me is one of the biggest things amongst the other things we're going to talk about you got to do. What I love is when hardcore kids are surpass what people think what we're supposed to be doing. When they think a punk rock, a hardcore thing is a kid thing. When I'm like, yeah, maybe stage diving it hurts now, but, a mentality isn't. You know what I mean? I don't understand that. Stigma taught me that. He goes, how could you you don't go to shows, but how could you give up a way of mind, a state of mind, a way of thinking? You know what I mean?
Well, let me back you up a second.
Yes.
First of all, this is huge for me because I listen to your podcast. My DNA is straight up Queens, and New York hardcore taught me a lot of what I know now in terms of the hustle, getting out there, how I've done things. I don't remember when we first met. I know we ended up playing a lot, shows with Demise.
Yes. Unisound with Gorilla Biscuits. Shout out to them too.
Pennsylvania.
Also. Yeah.
Right. But the idea that going back to a time in my life when I met all these guys in these hardcore bands, and you say I owned the studio. Here's the thing: I had immigrant parents. Me and my brother were walking down the street one day, and we ran into this guy randomly in Jackson Heights, and I had my guitar, and he said, "Yo, I have a studio on 89th Street, whatever, I forget what it was, right? What street it was on." And I was like, "Oh, cool, I'll come check it out." And I'm in there and I'm talking to him, and he said, "I'm looking to retire to move to Florida. I'm going to get rid of this place." And I came up with the idea. I'm like, I'm in a band. I know so many people in bands. I'm like, well, what if you don't get rid of it? What if I just run it for you and make it my place, and I'll send you some money as long as I can cover the rent? It was just one of those things, and it just happened. And I got hooked up with the craziest group of people back then. But you know, it's what you just said. That was like pure, like I didn't come from money, you know. I didn't have that. My dad owned a deli, a delicatessen in Jackson Heights that he got because, you know, he played soccer
Yeah.
and, you know, he retired and owned a deli. But they were immigrant parents and we were, you know, middle class, just like everyone else that you knew growing up there.
Yeah.
So that was hustle. And I knew what I wanted to be from the jump. I wanted to be a director. Like early in my life, I'm like, I want to be a filmmaker.
So you
But
knew that then already. You knew that
I knew
then.
that then. I don't, the thing that a lot of people in the hardcore scene don't know is I used to film everything. I just wasn't the kind of guy to go around and talk to people about it.
Yeah.
But I have tons, I've been digging stuff up recently and I have tons of great footage of, you know, Gorilla Biscuits, all kinds of bands. I mean,
yeah.
The first hardcore band I got into was Token Entry when Anthony Cominali was the singer, before he did Raw Deal and Killing Time. So I think this is like 1984, 85. And
this is everybody out there. This is that OG Queens. This is why I had to have you. Besides you being all that, this is Queens' early DNA. That's a big part of New York hardcore history. Like Queens is a big part of it, not just the Lower East Side. Queens, like what you're just saying right now, it's like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, think about the bands that came out of Jackson Heights, right? You got, Token Entry was Astoria, Murphy's Law was Astoria, Leeway, and then
Flanagan, Raw Deal, Raw Deal. Gorilla Biscuit House was right there, you know, like literally like staples, like, you know, from Straight Edge to the Scumbags to
the guys in Gorilla Biscuits, Walter and Ant and Civ and everyone. I met those guys because the girl I was dating, well, first of all, I knew Barbara Ann Cominali.
Shout out to Bubs, of course. That's why I tell people there's a bigger connection than just the studio. Later on, like, you know, our families hung out with each other, you know, and your cousin and everybody, like, you know, we all grew, and then again, we followed you from the distance, and we kind of we were in with the Hazen Street later on. We kind of were in similar worlds, and then, you know, and here we go again. But
I still to this day, if you get in my car, my kids will tell you because you know my son's starting to appreciate a little bit. He can hear it, but you know when you play hardcore for people who don't listen to hardcore,
they don't want it.
They don't. They're like, what the hell is this, Dad? And you know, my girls are, you know, 14 and 12, as far away as you can be from what I love. But you get in my car, and I have all kinds of Spotify lists of, you know, old school New York hardcore.
Yeah.
And the band, so it was Token Entry, and then it was I had the thing, like I really admired Anthony's bands. I just loved Raw Deal and then Killing Time, and then it was, for me, it was when I got to start going to CBs, and I was like 15. And it was Agnostic Front, and then the early days of Sick of It All, Rest in Pieces, like all these bands. Just it's in my blood. Even today, when I'm doing TV shows, I'm putting music in there, and sometimes it's like, you know, I'm always trying to shove it in.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
How does it fit? What's the sequence? Can I get some of that in there?
Yeah.
Because it's something that's in me that I just love.
Yeah, that, you know, first of all, it's that exactly. It's that hardcore kid. Like, again, you can't get rid of that. That's from the grind of exactly, like, we have to make it happen. If we have an idea, the hardcore kid is going to make it happen. We're not just going to talk about it. That's why there was zines. That's why there was garage shows and pop-up house, you know, anywhere where we could get together to express ourselves the way we all want to. You know, if it was a garage.
Did you ever come to any of the parties at Bell Studios? Or we used to throw these.
I heard about them. I used to hear because all the other guys did. So when I started coming, it was kind of like maybe near the end of it. But I remember like they were coming up with like, it was before Demise, but early. My first band, it was right before we officially became, because I had an instrument, but I didn't know how to play it yet. These guys all had a band. So I was like, yeah, me and my boy, we jammed, you know, looking at each other in the bedroom, but they were going to the studio. And I remember walking into the studio, and I was like, you know, it felt like, you know, in the 70s style, like with the mirrors or something. I remember it was like wood paneling maybe. But I remember being like, whoa, shit, I'm in a fucking studio. Like, these guys come to the studio to rehearse. I know, again, first time ever in the studio. And then we ended up saying, yo, let's start a band. I jammed there once. It didn't really, nothing happened. You know, those guys, they would just jam, you know, just to get in there sometimes. And then fast forward, we started playing a little bit more. I don't remember what happened exactly with Bell. What happened? How did that stop?
We had to shut down because they were opening up. You said at the beginning, in the most unlikely block, right? There's
Crazy block.
Yeah. So the storefront next door to us was opening up a restaurant, and it was all fine until their first day of business. And I think I had, one of the hardcore bands in there, and the motherfucker came running next door, like going, "You got to stop the music. The tables are shaking." And I'm like, "You've been setting up for 3 months. How did you not hear this?" And, they just didn't think. So it got to a point where they had put a lot of money into the restaurant, and, just life, man. What was I going to do? Fight the guy?
Yeah.
So we ended up having to shut down. I thought for a minute about opening up somewhere else, but I was never going to get a deal like that anywhere.
Yeah. Got lucked out. That was
cool. And look, hardcore for me was, I was in Bad Trip and I loved it, and we toured, and I made some lifelong friends. A lot of the bands I admire now are still, back then are still playing now. So that's all amazing. But I knew in my heart, I'm like, I want to be a filmmaker. Yeah. The problem was, as a kid from Queens, immigrant family, I didn't have any connections. I didn't know anybody. So I used to go around with a camcorder. And that's why I used to, I have all the Bad Trip shows and tours and bands that we would play with.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But that's how I started. And my first official music video didn't come until 95.
and before that, so when you were doing, all right, so how did you, this is why I asked, because I know in the early stages, it ain't like now where you have a MacBook and you could automatically throw footage and it puts a movie together for you. You know what I mean? You started filming shows. Did you get, because I fucked around with it, and at one point I had my little fantasy where because I always liked angles and stuff. I like stuff. So I was filming a lot of stuff myself because I got into editing. I liked building, like song building, and I saw it like that style. So I used to make these little wild videos, but I saw how I transitioned, you went from filming shows. Now, how were you editing back then?
So, dude, this is the mentality, right? When I was in the same boat. I'm like, what do I do next? And because I knew I couldn't go to film school, and I dropped out of college, and I'm just in a band and I'm touring, I got a camcorder. I started thinking, all right, who's making music videos? Because that's something I really want. I love music. I'm going to do that. And I went to a friend of mine at a record label, and they were like, "Oh, there's production companies." And I just started knocking on doors, and remember, this is pre-cell phone, pre-internet. So I'm going door to door, and I met this dude who happened to be at a production company, but he worked at an ad agency. And I said, "Look," I told him my whole story, my spiel, and I'm like, "I'm a hard worker." He was like, "Well, listen, I need somebody to work in my AV room at the ad agency that I work at." And I went into this spot, and it was just wall-to-wall tapes of old commercials, and they had an editing machine. It was editing tapes, right? And I was like, "Oh my God," because when I saw that thing, and he showed me, in 5 minutes, he was like, "Here's what you do: you put a tape in this machine, you put another one in this one, you mark it here, you mark it there, you put it together, and you can make an edit."
Yeah.
And my mind blew, and I was like, I can do that right here with stuff that I film. So I went to work at the ad agency, and I just started figuring it out, and then when you're working around those folks, then you start to meet people. Yeah. And then I would meet a cinematographer, I would meet an editor. And the key there is just it's just like when you're, I'd go to CB's and you'd meet someone. It's like, "Oh, you play guitar, you want to jam, want to hang out?" Whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
It's just, you don't really know, but you meet like-minded people and you start doing it. That's it.
And ain't it crazy that that was the thing, the way to do it? My early demos were printed from a friend's mother at her job. They had a Xerox machine. So, run off copies. Exactly. Or friends would record on off hours when they would work at a studio. or exactly like what
I
kind of
think
what you
that I
did.
think that today, like the generation today, is missing out on that. You know,
I agree.
things are easier today, and at the same time, it's harder because there's more of it, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that we had in that New York hardcore scene was a real scene, right? There was a scene in New York, there was a scene in DC, there was a scene in,
Yeah.
and now I think it's all homogenized because the internet puts it all together.
Yeah.
So it gets lost. We would be able to build something from the ground up. And when I would see the bands doing it, and I saw my career do it too, you kind of build it from the ground up, but you start pulling favors. You know, when I did that Civ video, Can't Wait 1 minute more, and I just posted on my Instagram because I found a tape, and on the tape it says the making of Civ, and it's my camcorder just recording stuff, but it's amazing because everybody, you know, you have Sick of It All in it, you have Toby,
I was there. I rolled up. I remember I had a good time that day.
you
I
know,
rolled up.
and
Yeah.
it's everybody in there, but nobody was getting paid.
Oh, yeah,
Everyone's
no.
just coming to do a thing for the
Great
scene,
time.
to support other bands. That part of the scene I loved. You know, the part that was scary for me and intimidating, and why I think I didn't engage a lot, is my first couple of times I went to CB's, I was terrified.
Of course.
You know, I'm a 15-year-old kid, you know, who thinks he's like a punk. And what I'm really is a poser who's figuring it out.
Not
right?
a poser, it's just that some of us were just savages.
Yeah. But there would be like, you know, it's like the crews back then, and they were intimidating. And
yes,
you know, I would have to go to CB's and stand way in the back because
but you always good. Bad Trip was always good. Marco was
yeah,
good.
but I'm talking about me, not even with the band, just going to shows.
For sure. It was yeah, for sure. It was there was definitely a danger element. Like now it's dangerous because it's the music. They say it's loud and aggressive. Back then it was also the people that went, and you know, just the vibe. Yeah, it was same thing. That's what kind of either scared you away, or brought you back, or did both.
It kept me. It definitely. I stayed because I loved it. I loved the music, and I was really attracted to the. And I don't mean this as purely male, but the brotherhood of the scene.
Of course, I know what you mean. Yeah, for sure.
That really kind of drew me to it. But I do remember, like, you know, going along with the scene. Like I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I've always dabbled in art. So there was a little time in my life when I was 16, I was going out and spray painting and like tagging up, and one day I remember I put something up, and somebody came into Delhi and was like, "Yo, you wrote on so and so's," and I was like, "What I do?" You know, you know. So I'm like, I put the spray paint away. I'm like, I'm not gonna.
I'm done.
Yeah,
Let me ask you: did you do the artwork for the Bad Trip stuff?
No, our good friend Jordan Issip.
Because you guys always had that really artsy style. I remember the Bad Trip stuff always had like
Jordan
style, like
he's actually a professor at, oh my God, I'm embarrassed, at Pratt maybe now, but he's an illustrator. He's big. His wife Melinda did all the artwork for Quicksand.
Wow. Oh yeah, exactly. You could tell the line style. I know already because I remember seeing that, and it was really original then. I mean, and still, but because I remember it was like, you know, everything was a punk rock. You know, you guys had it was more style in the artwork, and then more artwork became stylish, like the Quicksands and the other thing. You were able to throw a little bit more swag. You know, I think that's the Queens stuff that comes out. Like, you know, obviously we brag because we're from Queens and all that, but there is something special about it that, you know, we weren't living in squats, but we were working class. We did mingle in that area and got good relations with that area, but we also had homes. We may have had good parents, or we might have had a house and no parents. You know, I was like, that's why we all were attracted to the same shit. It didn't matter. Like people used to think like early days in Europe, like you had to come from New York City or from a squat. I'm like, no. Unfortunately, some people had that. I always said I had two loving mother and father. I'm lucky. But I also saw 99% of my friends didn't have that.
Yeah.
So I knew guys that were financially rich, and they didn't even know who their parents were. They used to call my mother Ma or my because they had no. And I used to see the difference. I got to learn a lot. Again, being from Queens in the middle class, being in the middle.
Well,
And
you were in Jackson Heights, right?
Yeah, I was in Corona, Elmhurst. But Jackson Heights is where we always.
Because my cousin lived on 114th in Roosevelt, so he was in Corona. I was in Jackson Heights, and the thing about those neighborhoods back then, and it gets the same now. The diversity was incredible, and this is at a time when it's not talked about like now. But I had Indian friends, Colombian, Dominican, Puerto Rican, and I'm Brazilian, and I grew up in a household where my parents didn't speak English, but they welcomed people into the home like family. So I always felt like Queens. I'm such a proud Queens guy. I talk about it back when I'm on set with people, when I meet somebody from Queens. When you were interviewing Walter Schreifels, you guys talked about how you see somebody in a hardcore shirt and you immediately feel like you have a connection. Yeah. That happens to me all the time. And I'm like going up to dudes. I'm like, oh my God, Burn? Oh my God, and it's immediate like.
Yeah, I get happy because it's
and
more
I'm
like
that with Queens too.
Oh, me too. And like I said, like I love Slayer, but you see a Slayer shirt, okay. When you see exactly a Burn shirt, you see a agnostic for certain shirts, you could almost connect the dots to how they got into it, or somebody that I know, or it's just something real special that I see it all over the world. And it's funny, I did it recently. I talked about it once around here. I was getting something to eat. A guy had an Instead shirt, and I said, yo, cool shirt. I got happy. I had to say something. And he goes, yeah, it's a band. I said, cool. And I just walked away like he didn't know. But I was like, I got happy. And I was like, yo, he's a hardcore kid. Like, all right. And I got happy. And obviously you grew up in Queens. You grew up, and especially in that area of Queens. You had Raw Deal. You had Gorilla Biscuit's house was big. They had
they lived on my street.
That was your street. Okay.
Yeah. So the house I grew up in with my mom, my dad was on 68th Street between Northern and 32nd, and they moved into an apartment up the block.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because like Toby was living there. He lived in like the closet.
I know.
And he was dating my cousin. So it was very much, we were all in the same, like not just the same neighborhood, the same block.
Yeah, I didn't know the block, but I remember the same area. That's amazing. Yeah. And that was a big thing, and everybody don't know the Gorilla Biscuit's house. That was like, again, they had Chic House, Alleyway House, you had AF Crew, Chromax Crew, and then you had, Gorilla Biscuit House. And our old park was 78th Street on Northern, and it was something that we always wore as a badge also of like, yeah, Gorilla Biscuits house, that's right there. Like, we got one of the big dogs living in, Queens in the house. We got Raw Deal down the block. We got, Jack Flanagan is down there. Rest in peace. We got this guy over here, So it was hard. And we didn't even have to get to Astoria yet. We were just talking about our area.
I know.
And then you got Astoria.
That's a little bike ride away. And, you got a whole other crew down there.
Yeah.
You know what I never was, though? I was never a straight edge kid.
Yeah, well, yeah, not from where the area of the side of Queens we lived. It'd be very hard to grow up in that area. And you're brasileiro, you had to get something in you.
Well, I'm telling you, like there was a dude who worked for my dad in the deli. He was dealing coke. He was dealing weed.
Yeah,
it was a different. Like I would see that world, and then I would like see like the straight edge guys, and I'm like, I can get down with all of this. I support you, but. It's a different upbringing.
Yeah, back then it was more black and white in general. Like there was like no gray area. Now there's with vegan, this, that, which is all dope. Back then it was like you were either extreme that way or this way, and then you either cool with each other or not. Kind of thing. Because we always knew there was always like a drug addict. Somebody, then there was the straight edge this, then there was a Krishna this guy. I tell everybody they used to be characters. White Power Willie, Krishna Ken. You had Punk Rock Pete. It was always something.
But the name of my band was Bad Trip. Right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
We had one guy in the band who was straight edge, our bass player, but less straight edge and more. He just didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And let me ask you this: so you you start filming, you're doing that. What's like the first? Do you first get a job as an assistant? Because I know a lot of people want, they're getting into that, especially now. It's still big, A lot of people are filming, content is big, I even deal with a lot of it doing my stuff. Like, oh wow, you get into it now that you got to film, and then you start, it gets the bug going, and I'm just looking at it on a broader thing, like trying to showcase, a show or whatever. I know people that are into the art of, directing and putting something together or shooting. Like, yeah, how did you start? You doing the assistant job, or
No,
you just?
This is why I say that the hardcore ethic is in my DNA, because I hustled. I always went out and pursued anything. So I was never an assistant, but no job was above me. Like if I saw an opportunity to work
That's great.
and to learn something, I did it. Like I didn't care. Some people be like, "Why are you doing that?" I'm like, because I feel like this is something I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get something out of that.
Yeah.
But it really was. Walter came to me, Walter Schreifels, and was like, "I want to do. I'm doing this band, Civ."
Shout out to Quicksand. Love that band.
Yeah, man. And it's like, I want to do a music video. I don't remember the exact sequence of events. I smoked way too much weed to remember anything. But it was just, he said we had lunch somewhere in the city, and I was like, I have an idea. And I pitched this idea to him, and before you know it, we were out, making the Can't Wait 1 Minute More video. And what my goal was to get that video, to have that tape in my hand, and to walk into record companies and say, I'm a music video director. Boom. That's it. That was my goal. I didn't have any other thing in my head. And that's what I did. And we got, I got lucky. I think Civ signed to Lava Records. They put the video out. Now I have a video on MTV, and it's 1995.
The height of videos. I remember that.
Well, it was getting to height of videos, but we were like a buzz clip. And the amazing thing was they put directors' names on the screen. So it said directed by Marco Siega. And so now I have this video. I'm walking into record companies, again, pre-email, pre-cell phones. So I had to go there. And before 9/11, when New York was a place where you could walk into an office building and wander down a hallway, like I did that. I just wandered into record companies and I was like, who's the motherfucker who's in charge of doing music videos?
Oh yeah, knocking on doors, lobbies. Yeah, people used to do that with demos. I remember.
Exactly. And I put this on people's desks, and out of that, I got some small videos for some small bands, but then I got an Anthrax video. Oh. And Anthrax brought me to Corrosion of Conformity. And then another Anthrax video. And I started doing rock videos, which at the time, music video directors, like the big videos were the hip hop videos that were starting to pop off. And I was kind of in this niche of, I did videos for bands I liked and bands I would listen to, partly because I'm like, I know what it's like to be at a show. I know what it's like to feel that music.
Yeah.
And if you look at my video discography, because I've done 100 videos, they're all rock videos, with the exception of like I did a Jurassic 5 video and a couple of pop videos, but it's everything from I did Papa Roach's first record, System of a Down's first record, Blink 182, and those bands launched my career.
Yeah, I was just gonna get into that, because I was like, we're gonna start with the music, because now it's time to brag. You ain't gonna brag, but I'm gonna brag for you, because I brag about you. You don't even know it for years, because I'm like, that's Queens right there. I used to jam in the studio. You know what he does. And we're gonna get into it, like, all the shows you jock, all you people. My man worked on it, probably did it or whatever. But we're gonna get into that. Before we get into that, and we're gonna start with, let's just start with that. You did the Can't Wait 1 Minute More Civ video, like you just saw. But right now, so I had because I knew there was a lot. And throughout the years, we connected the dots with Hazen Street. And then I remember you were doing some of those type of bands. But I had to wiki you, and I said 311, right? Alien Ant Farm, right? There's a lot more. I'm going to hit them with the 101's big name, All-American Rejects. Anthrax, like you said, Biff Naked. The Blink 182, Enough Said. Tracy Bonham, Buck Cherry. Shout out to them. He worked on my Civ, Collective Soul, COC, The Crystal Method, Cypress Hill. That's cool. You did stuff Hillary Duff. I see at Disney, you know, because I know sometimes this wiki thing is shady, but I know you did a lot.
Yeah, I did. It's funny. It's like that came out. It's interesting because that kind of stuff. I did like 3 pop videos in my career, but that one came out specifically because the person who was hiring, like looking for somebody, was a fan of like rock.
Yeah,
and he was like, I want to
it.
do something different for Hillary. You know?
Hell yeah.
So I got those opportunities from people who were like-minded. You know.
Oh yeah, and again, we're gonna go a little bit more. I'm gonna brag a little bit more. Everclear, Goldfinger, the Hoobastank. That's around the Hazen Street time because I remember you kind of, I didn't hear about you for a little bit, and then boom, I remember when Hazen Street. Now we're doing the Hazen Street thing, and they're talking about people doing videos, and then they were like, "Oh, Marco Siega and this guy and Smith and Boren," and I'm like, why is that name? Like, I kind of threw me off. I go, wait a minute. No, I go, wait a minute. That can't be Marco. They're like, that's I go, oh, shit. And then I was like, yo, he's doing all these videos. That's when you were doing, it was around that. Again, I was so new in that world, you know, because I was like major label and it was all those type of bands. It was like the Hoobastanks and all that. You did a Kelly Osbourne. POD, I remember that was going on, the Papa Roach. Yeah, exactly. That was all that time. Paramore, forget it. All right, Quicksand. This is just the music videos. And
let me System of a Down, because that is probably one of the biggest videos I did for Chop Suey. That video took off.
So you did that one, right? Because you see, there was a lot of times I would see your name and I was like, yo, shit, he did. But I would forget. That was the biggest one, you would say, the Chop Suey.
No,
right?
Well, it's one of the biggest ones. Everyone knows the song. Like you hear that opening bit, right? I did a couple for them. I did Toxicity. The names of songs are going to be tough to remember, but that's a band, for example, that I got a call from Columbia Records, and they were like, "Yo, we have this band we want you to go check out. They're going to go to Burning Man, and maybe you can go and document some of it." And at this time, I was already doing music videos, but they sent me an early, in advance of this record, that first System of a Down record. And man, it blew me away. So then I went to go see them. And I got to tell you, growing up, going to hardcore shows, you know what the energy is like, you know, like being in the pit of a packed CBs.
Yeah.
It's transformative, right? It's like you just lose your mind.
Yeah.
And this was the first time that I experienced it again, like post New York hardcore. I was at this System of a Down show in a small club. I don't even know where, somewhere in Nevada. And I was like, oh my God, this is a real deal. These guys, they kind of emit the thing that I felt growing up. And when I had the idea for that video, I remember telling the guys, I'm like, I want to do something where you feel like you're there. Yeah. And that, you know, both that video and the Papa Roach, what is that track called? Oh my God. Cut My Life.
I remember the making of. I remember that's why I got to see.
You know, with all the kids around them, that came straight out of the idea of like, what's it like to be there, right? Yeah. What's it like to be in and amongst that? But those, like, there's a couple of defining videos for me. Of course, Blink 182, What's My Age Again, all the small things. They were big videos, but they were more like I had an idea that I thought was funny.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. The Papa Roach and the System of a Down and POD, and I did this Corrosion of Conformity video. If the song isn't very big, the video is not very big, right? Yeah, but those are some of my favorite videos because they're really who I am as a person. And as a filmmaker, it was an opportunity to kind of take this thing that's inside me and try to put it on the screen, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you do the Civ video, all right? Now the video, you know, obviously, the budget was whatever the budget was because they wanted to make it happen, right? So you got that. Now you're going around like, what's the next video? Like a video where they go, okay, yo, you got a nice little budget, yo, this is your big. You know, like, oh, this is a big, whatever the job was, like, this is your first official Big Willie job, and you got a nice little budget. You're like, oh,
all right.
shit.
You remember those days when you're in a band and you go to a club and you get paid $100 the first time, and you're just, oh my God, we got $100, right? Well, that was a little bit like it was for me. The Civ video was, under $10,000, and it was Revelation Records and Walter and Civ, and I kicked in by getting the equipment for free, because we shot in a real studio with real cameras and real lights, and that shit cost money. The first time, I think my Anthrax video was only like $30,000 or $40,000, and I say only, but that to me was like, oh my God, they're gonna, and then you start to get a little success, and it's 70, right? And then 70 goes to 100.
It becomes it.
Yeah. The thing that held me back was that I never wanted to do the hip hop. It just wasn't something, not that I don't like hip hop. It's just, I didn't know it as well. Right.
Yeah.
So that had the budget back then. And, my rock videos, I think I kind of peaked out at like 150,000 per episode, per video.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of money for me. That's not how much I made. That was how much the video was. Right. And then I would grab from that, whatever was left over, whatever I could. But as you know, when you're in a band, when you're doing anything freelance, you're an artist, sometimes you make $100, sometimes you make $5,000.
Yep.
And I think that's been, my whole career has been that way.
Yeah.
And you learn to live with those, sometimes I'd say, I'll do that. And they're like, really? We don't have enough money. I'm like, that's not why I'm doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing with that is good that you say that, because people don't understand now. You're talking about some of the biggest bands on the planet at the time, and these are the budgets at the time for them. And the smaller bands weren't seeing. That was a problem with us at that time when everybody was getting videos. Look, shout out to Drew Stone. We always shout out to Drew Stone, because at that time, we're on Roadrunner. Now you need a video to compete. This is just a new thing happening. But again, videos then were $80,000, $60,000, $100,000. Nobody's gonna give us that. And I remember Roadrunner had put all their money into Typo Negative, and I think Sepultura dropped one of their Chaos AD videos where they spent it was just ridiculous, $100,000, and it was a big talk or something. And us, like, we're coming up to one of our records, we're doing all right, but in our small little world, we're like, yo, we need a video.
Yeah, what people don't understand is that you're paying for half of that.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah, you pay exactly. And then but it was so much money that people don't understand, it wasn't given out. Like now, thank God for technology. I mean, it sucks for some guys, some of the directors and stuff, but technology could let the person that didn't have access or budget make quality. You know what I mean? Because it went from being, $100,000 to do a video to, again, like what you did is what Drew Stone did with us. He piggybacked cameras from other shoots and said, yo, I got leftover film, and I got cameras till Monday. Let's go.
Yeah. You got to tell people though, right? Because you just said it, film.
Yes.
The cost was you not only had to get film, which cost money, and shoot the film, you had to develop the film and convert it to video. All that costs money that you don't have to spend today. And technology isn't bad for the directors. I think if anything, I love it when I see something that some small band has done, and I'm like, it's super creative, and they did it on their iPhone.
Yeah.
That's inspiring to me today. It makes me want to go out there and try shit.
Yeah. And so it's like, for sure. And it's like, I see it on both sides. The same thing. Like, I remember having to record on tape like we did back in the day. Record now, bye. You could take the perfect take, and now you get the perfect. It's so easy. Like, we were spending thousands of dollars on me trying to record one take, of a song. Like, insanity. And you're doing these videos, okay, and obviously, I know you're dipping into TV stuff, right? But like, what's your first real? I don't like saying real because real could be, what I mean. What I mean by real, like something pop or what that everybody might know of. What's your first a taste of the film of the big
So
time in TV or whatever, film or
so
whatever.
I wanted to be, I wanted to be a filmmaker, and doing music videos was a step in that
Yeah.
direction. But the next step is like, how do I get a movie made? And I was like, I'm not a cinephile by any means. Like I can't quote shit like people can, but it's the art that I love. And I consumed every bit that I could. And one of those bits happened in the late 90s with The Sopranos. I'm watching this show and I'm like, man, this is like a movie every week. And then I thought, maybe I'm pursuing the wrong thing. Maybe making a movie's too hard. But again, because I'm still a guy from Queens with no money, and I'm hustling, and I'm making, I'm making money doing music videos, but not the kind of money that anybody thinks you're making, right?
Yeah.
And I saw that this dude, Paris Barkley, had come out of New York, and he had done like the Mama Said Knock You Out video for LL Cool J, and he was directing some television. So I reached out to him, and again, pure hustle, just cold calling. And I'm like, yo, can I shadow you? Can I come check you out? Like when you're doing some work. And I just started doing that. And next thing you know, there was a guy. So when Civ released their second album, the first music video, was it their second? No, it was their first album. The second music video from their album. So I had done Can't Wait 1 Minute More. I forget what the second single was, but that single, I just assumed I'm going to direct that video, right? These are friends of mine, but now they're on a major label, and it's not about just friends, right? The major label is going to have a say. And they hired this dude in LA, Mick G, to direct their video.
He was doing a bunch of videos at the time.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, he had only had one hit. He had a Sugar Ray video that he
That's
did.
what it was. Okay.
Yeah, and like me with Civ, he grew up with the Sugar Ray guys, and he did their video, and that video was a big pop hit, and he's a good director. So they did the video with him. After the video came out, I tracked him down and I called him up, and I was like, hey, my name's Marco. He was like, oh, you did that first Civ video. And I was like, yeah, man, I just wanted to say I really liked the second one. And I had some questions for him because I wanted to do what he was doing. We became, friendly, and his career took off. He did some crazy big videos. And then he got the movie Charlie's Angels. And he directed the Charlie's Angels movie, and that made $100 million. And next thing you know, this guy who was just like me doing music videos had a lot of power, because when you make that kind of money for a studio, they start coming to you saying, what do you want to do? Right?
Yeah.
And he had an idea for a TV show called Fastlane. And he got together with this writer, John McNamara. And when I heard about this, I called him up and I was like, listen, we're kind of built the same. We come from the same background. If you get this opportunity to do this TV show, consider me to do an episode. I had never done television, but that phone call changed my life, because he was like, yeah, man, he had never done a movie before Charlie's Angels. He had never done a TV show either. And we had both come out of the music video world. And he got this show, and Fox picked it up, and it was called Fastlane. It was Tiffany Thiessen and Peter Facinelli, and I forget who else, but it was a cop show on Fox called Fastlane. And he called me up, and they got 12 episodes, and he gave me 2 of them.
Crazy. You know what's crazy? Right off the grip, I want everybody out there to hear this, and it's something that I always had a problem with, and it's something that you're tapping in, and at a perfect time, even for myself. There's always that old term, closed mouths don't get fed. You already pointed out a couple, 2-3 points in your life that your career changed was because of you saying, you know what, let me ask, let me be vocal, let me knock out, let me walk down this hallway, let me take it that next step, which I know working with music is what you gotta do if you want a chance. You gotta
For
take
sure,
that
man.
extra step always.
And what you're hearing me tell you the successes.
Yeah.
I could sit here and rattle off the 150 times that I asked or knocked on a door or went to an office where nothing happened.
Yeah.
And when I say nothing happened, I don't even think that's true, because I always figured out something. Like, I saw somebody there. I met somebody.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you learn for
Something.
sure.
I didn't get the thing I wanted in those times. Those what you call, what I might look back and say those were not successful like pursuits, but in hindsight, they all were.
Yeah.
And I'm just pointing out like the moments that I think really changed the trajectory of my career, because I did those 2 episodes. And then now you're playing in the big leagues because they're actually making a TV show that's going to be on the air. I've never done it before. Somebody's taken a chance on me, not just McG, because he's the guy who's pushing, but Fox was taking a chance. It was a Warner Brothers show. They were taking a chance. So in my head, I was like, I got to go kill this thing. I have to crush it. And
I want to break something now. I want to break something now because that's how I think with everything, especially now in life. It's that to the 10th power. It's like with anything we create, why wouldn't you want to smash it?
Yeah,
you know
don't do it. Don't do it halfway.
Yeah, for sure. And what same thing with you is great to hear again. You loved what you did, and so you already, because you worked at it so many years. You didn't just come up with it and expect something. You already did it for the love of it. Now you said, okay, now I gotta take care of this baby. How do I take care of this baby? Let me go out there. Now I gotta get it fed. You believed in it and you worked it. People sometimes think you gotta go to school, which could help, or you need to come from a certain background or a certain line to be successful. And I know that ain't always the case. And it's good to hear this where you basically raw talent, you love something, you worked at it, and you chopped away at it, and you worked the hustle on top of the skill and the fucking of actually, because people don't know that's that skill of filming. It's art. It really is. Anything that you create.
And that's the thing is like I don't think I have like any kind of ego when it comes to me as a person. But what I do believe is I believe I'm good at what I do. Oh, yeah. And you have to have that swagger, that confidence if you're gonna do anything right. Yeah. Right? Oh, like if you're a designer or especially in the creative world, because if you think about what we do, you as a musician, you put a song out, it's going to be criticized. Oh, yeah. When I make something, every episode of TV that I make that has my name on it, there's always some people out there who are like, I fucking hate that show.
Of course.
To me, that is white noise I don't hear, because I'm doing it because I love it, and I know I'm good at it. And if it's not hitting a mark, what did I do wrong? How do I make it better? But so we're at the point now. We're talking about my first TV show that happens, and it's not instant success. There's still a lot of hustling that has to happen, because now I have a Civ video, I have a Blink video, I have these things, but you have to maintain. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep proving. Especially when you don't come from a privileged background where there's already a leg up, right? Yeah. You're constantly fighting. I can tell you the 3 other times, definitive times in my career, just jumping in a timeline, was when I did my first pilot. You know what a pilot?
Yeah,
of
course. Yep, yes.
And for anybody that doesn't, when a pilot is the first episode of a TV show that launches a series. Usually it used to be that pilots were done by like movie directors, because you're world building, you're building the universe for the first time. Any TV show doesn't just have that aesthetic. Somebody has to come in and give it that aesthetic. So the goal as a TV director was, how do I get my first pilot? And it's an impossible club to break into. And I say impossible because if you could be the best TV director, but if you don't go out there and fight to get a pilot, you're never going to do one. Yeah. Because there are people that do them. And my first pilot was for a show, and I remember I read the script for the first time. It's called Vampire Diaries. And I read it, and it was a love story. It wasn't dark. It wasn't. And I went into my meeting, and I had heard that everyone, because of Vampire Show, and it was, Twilight had come out. People are talking about like, oh, this should be like Twilight. It should be this. And I went in there, and I said to Kevin Williamson, who wrote it, I was like, this is a love story. And here's my idea of how I want it to be. I wanted to shoot it like a big romantic novel. And this is, for me, it was a stretch. It was exercising a muscle that I wasn't used to.
Oh, yeah.
And he looked at me and he was like, you're the first person to come in here and not talk about vampires. And I said, because the story is a love triangle. That's what I'm reading. And he was like, immediately, I knew I got the job, because I saw something that was in the DNA of what he wanted it to be, right? He wrote this thing just because it's about vampires and, but I hit the thing, and I learned a huge lesson then. I'm like, it's like the underlying, what's behind what this is on the surface. And directing that pilot, that's a show that ran for 8 seasons.
Great, yeah,
Big.
Great. That doesn't happen. Yeah, that's so hard for shows to stay on.
And that kind of changed my life, because it suddenly put me on a map in a different way. But the show I'm most proud of is Dexter.
Which is, by the way, that's the one everybody would know. And if you don't know, you're an a-hole, because I don't know what planet, solar system, when I found out that, I root for you. So I got extra happy. How did that come up? That must have been, and before it came up, yes. So when did you come along? How did that thing come up, come into your whole?
But that's the crazy part, man. I was home like a fan, watching Showtime, and I see this show called Dexter, season 1, and I watched the whole thing. I watched every episode. It would come out on a Sunday, and I was hooked. And I, like around episode 8 of 12, I called my agent, and I was like, look, I don't know how to do this, but I have to meet the guy who runs the show. I want to meet the guy. I see his name on every episode, Clyde Phillips. How do I meet him? And they were like, look,
crazy,
you're not going to do an episode of Dexter because so this is around episode 9. He goes, it's a massive hit. It was just nominated for Golden Globes, for Emmys. He goes, everybody in town wants to do it. And I'm like, I get it. I'm a fan. I fucking love the show, but you're my agent. All I'm asking you to do, I'm not asking you to give me the job. All I'm asking you to do is get me a meeting. I don't care if it's a 2-minute meeting. And then I told him, I go, that is your one responsibility. And at the time, as a music video director who had success, and I was directing TV, I didn't have a lot of power, but other agents would take me.
Yeah, no, of course you did something. You weren't nobody.
Right.
You were somebody, and obviously you got an agent, and that's what exactly. You had a flex.
You sign with a major label, and everyone thinks, oh, major label, and I'm like, it's
you
not
a flex. You still got to flex.
You got to flex. So I'm flexing, and I'm putting pressure on this dude. And 1 week goes by, I watch another episode. Another week goes by. Now we get to the finale. The finale airs, and I'm calling him. I'm like, when are they going to start shooting another season? I need a meeting. And he was like, man, I can't. I'm trying, but they're not taking meetings. Everybody in town wants to direct this thing. And I was like, dude, don't give up. Just call them every day. And then I was fucking in my garden, literally in my backyard, watering my grass in LA. And phone rings. It's my agent's like, can you get down to Sunset and Gower Studios? They have like a half-hour window, and I've been bothering them so much. They said you can come down. They said, I don't know who's going to be in the room. I'm not sure if Clyde's going to be there or not, but can you do it? And I was like, fuck yeah. And at the time, I didn't even have a car. I had a Vespa. and I got on my Vespa, and I rolled down to Sunset and Gower. And I go into this office. There's nobody there. They bring me in. They sit me down. So they'll be with you in a second. And then first, this dude, Robert Lewis, comes in. He's a line producer. And if you don't know, the line producer is really the money guy. He's a guy who does but he's also really good. He's partners with the creative guy.
Gotcha.
And he's like, look, Clyde is here, and he's going to make some time to see you. And before you know it, I had 4 people in the room who meant something, and they had no time, but they were like, okay, so what do you got? Now, if I come out now and say what everybody's going to say, which is, I love the show, I want to do an episode, I'm just going to be like everybody else. So, in my head, the whole time that I'm sitting there, I'm like, how do I get them to, how do I, and
God damn you. You're a fucking art director. You got me suspense right now, motherfucker.
yeah, but all it was,
but it's working. It's working right now.
I kept thinking, I read somewhere one time that people love to talk about themselves. So when Clyde walked in the room, and remember, this is the motherfucker who I said to my agent, I want to meet with him. Yeah. So I had done my homework on him. I knew that he had written novels. And nobody talks about that, right? Yeah, so he came in, and I said, Clyde, I just finished your last book.
There you go. Hell yeah, there you go.
Did I finish his last book?
Yeah, but you got it
at Barnes and Noble real quick.
Yeah, it got you in the door.
But we immediately started talking about the writing of the show. And it was less about, I love the show and I want to come do it. And we started talking about the writing because it's really, I was so impressed with the twists and the turns and the concept. And it was based on a book. And I read the book, and the book was different than the TV show. So I had questions. So I came in there and started asking questions about the writing and complimenting him, obviously. And I meant it on what he did. And before you know it, an hour and a half goes by. And, they had, when they got in there, they had like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Great.
And now it's an hour and a half, and we're talking about character, and we're talking about what I thought. And then he started to say, well, what did you think the show could use? And then I started talking about what I love and cinema, and I would reference movies and say, this is what I felt. I literally, great meeting. I leave, I go back to my home. I call my agent. I'm like, look, it went as good as I think it could go. And he goes, well, you got the job. Before I even got home, Clyde had called him, and they booked me for 2 episodes of a show that
everybody wanted.
And total coincidence, the cinematographer of the show, the guy who, gave it the look, was a guy named Romeo Tyrone, who went to St. John's University. He's from Queens, from Long Island, then Queens. And he had done the Faith No More video. You remember the fish flapping around?
Yeah, of course. That was a huge video.
Yeah, so he came from the music video world. And
boom.
Just small world. I started connecting dots, and all these things just came together. And then I directed the 2nd episode of season 2, which was a prime spot. And, it worked. Next thing you know, I'm like a regular director on Dexter. Michael and the cast and the crew, and we become like family.
Crazy.
So when Clyde left the show, he left after season 5. There were 8 seasons, but he left after season 5. I also left. Part of it was loyalty to him, and part of it was, I had other things I wanted to do. I'd done that thing, and the show to me was starting to change. And then, fast forward to just 3 years ago, when Michael calls me and he's like, I think I'm going to do a last season of Dexter, but I'm going to do it if you do it. Will you do it with me?
How great that must have felt.
Oh, dude, it felt incredible because, now you know the story, and it's like, how does that feel when you go fight for something and you get to a point where now the lead actor, Michael, wants to wrap it up with Clyde. And the 2 of them are saying, we want to do it, but you got to be a part of it. And they made me an executive producer on the show. I was there from the beginning, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. But again, it all goes back to, you got to take big swings. You got to get out there.
Look, it's really what you're saying, even, which I know already is kind of what you do, but it's also motivating with me because, that people don't understand that, people don't like asking. But some people don't understand. But when you're passionate about something, some of us think what it is. It comes from, some people think asking is like you're begging. Is like, no, we're asking for an opportunity so we could show us our shit, so we could show you our swag, so we can show you what we got. I get it now. I would see it before, like I didn't want to ask for help when it's like, it's not so much help. It's basically, I just need your eyes. I just need your attention. I don't need nothing else. Let me do the rest. Because I'm the same way. I like to work. I like to earn mine. Because I'm a control freak too. So but I also know when I'm ready to present something, I go in full blast because I know I already I killed it 1,000 times before the public hears it. I got to make sure, you know how it is. Before you put anything out, you got to know it's the best you're
doing it now, man. You're doing it like this podcast, right? You're doing it with all the other things you do on the side. I follow you on social media. I see the things you're out there doing, whether it's in merchandising or with the band, or you're on tour, you're meeting people. You're doing exactly the thing, whether you know it or not, right? That I've done my whole career, and I still do it today. I just finished a show last year called Bad Monkey. It's going to come out on Apple next year, and it's with Vince Vaughn, and the writer is Bill Lawrence, who created Ted Lasso and Shrinking.
It's funny. I just started watching Ted Lasso yesterday.
That's funny.
Literally yesterday.
So Bill Lawrence, he's known for comedy. He created a show called Scrubs back. Of
course, that was the hugest show on the world. Also,
right. So that's him. I didn't know him, and now I have a decent career. I do what I do. I still got to hustle. When I finished Dexter, my agents were like, "What are you looking for next?" And I'm like, you know what? I want to do something funny. I did True Blood. I did Vampire Diaries. I did Dexter. I did Cold Case. Whatever the dark shows there are, right? But I want to do something funny. And they were like, well, we have a script here for this show called Bad Monkey. It's going to be Vince Vaughn, but they already have a director. And and this is just 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. I did the same thing. I said, I don't care. Give it to me. Let me read it. And now get me a meeting and let me go in there. Before you know it, I'm actually doing the pilot and I'm an executive producer on the show, but it's because I'm pursuing something that I really believe in. It's not for the sake of like, I want to do something big, or I'm doing it because I believe in it.
Yeah. And
it was a really hard show, but that's what, sometimes you gotta bleed to get to
this is something that I want to ask you from what you're saying right now, that I'm very curious, because obviously I know I could tell from that you're really into the reading and the writing. Obviously you must have been into reading books and stuff early. If you weren't, this is my question.
No,
you wasn't, which now is insane to me, because from reading a treatment for a video to like, how do you go about reading a script for a show and being like, you just said, oh, I read this, I read a love story. Oh, I see it, I get it. I could never understand that. I've done, friends that directed movies, they gave me scripts and I've done little movies, and I'm like, how do you even know this is a story? I read, okay, this character says this and this and that. Like, I just didn't get it. Like, was it like just from getting scripts, you learn how to see it, because they're written different. They're not written like
look, we all have. You can do something I can't. You can identify a groove probably instantly. You walk into a studio and someone hands you a bass and you got a drummer, and you just start riffing on something, and next thing you know, you're like, this is a fucking, let's go this way, let's go that way. You're identifying something at its inception, right? And you're creating something. Or even if it's not you playing, if you walk in a room and you hear a band jamming and you're like, oh fuck, that's incredible.
Yeah.
You're feeling it because it's what you know, right? I was never a big reader. Today, if you hand me a script, a TV episode, and it's 50 pages or 60 pages, it's going to take me 2 hours to read it.
Yeah.
It's just how I am.
Crazy.
I read slowly.
Yeah.
But because I love it, I pay attention. And I understand how to break a script down. So if I'm reading something and it's like there's a moment, you got to remember, for me, because I didn't go to film school, all this stuff is self-taught. So I don't even know if it's the right way.
Yeah, me neither. It is
know,
the right way. Whatever you're doing is the right way.
Yeah, but I just know that it's my way, right?
Yes.
But it might be different for everybody else. And I know that when I've been asked to like speak at like I've asked to lecture at film schools and talk to up and coming filmmakers. I'm really careful about the process because everybody should have their own process.
Yeah.
Everybody, it should come from you. You should feel it. So I was never a big reader, but you know, I read now because I realized that everybody borrows from somebody.
Yeah.
So you try to familiarize yourself with the classics, with the stories, because every story we get today comes from a story that existed.
Yeah.
The fundamental foundations of that story, right?
Music, same way, you know.
Whether it's Shakespearean or a Greek tragedy, or so there's that's a learned thing. I didn't learn it early on. I'm learning now every day. I'm literally reading a biography right now because I got into it and I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. This guy's life was incredible, and I just kind of get hooked on those things. So I don't know. I certainly didn't come, to answer your question, I didn't come from a place of I was not good at school.
What you're saying to me, because like you're saying, I never understood reading a script and how people saw the story, and how you just said you got one of your main jobs because you read the script and you understood it the way they wanted it to be understood. Obviously,
but I didn't know that, Hoya. I didn't know that that's what they wanted.
Which is crazy.
I just went in there and I talked about the thing that I felt when I read it, right? They just, again, part of that, it's not luck because it's what's there. It's what's on the page. It was a love story. And I think a lot of filmmakers go in there going, oh, there's a sequence here in the beginning where a vampire attacks a couple and they start talking about, how I'm going to make it scary. It's going to be like this. It's going to be like that. I didn't say any of those things because when I read it, I wasn't thinking that way. And it's it wasn't because I knew that they wanted to hear the love story. It's just what I happened to get out of it.
Yeah, which is insane, because that's what I was just about to ask you. Did you go into it kind of knowing that, maneuvering that way, and you didn't? You kind of knew it. Obviously, it's a vampire movie. Something's gonna, the whole spooky shit's gonna be there, which is great because you got down to the nitty gritty. You know how that is. Writers, they want to be deep. I know they want to be acknowledged for how deep they are. Again, I'm guilty of it as a music writer. When somebody's like, "Wow, what did you think of that riff?" And I'm like, I kind of get a little bit happy. I get it. But I know we're writers also because, they put in their feelings on,
Look, I have gone into things with an intention, like with Dexter.
Of course.
Like I knew when I was sitting in that room, literally in the moment, I'm thinking, what's going to come out of my mouth when they say, so what do you want to say? And then I just kept thinking, crazy. What is everybody else saying? I don't want to do that. Right? That's all. It was just a matter of, sometimes you got to put yourself on the other side, right? And go, all they're hearing from people is, oh, your show is amazing. I want to direct an episode. I can make it cool. Or, it's this. That. So I was like, I wanted to stand out.
Yeah, that's great.
But I think I learned that lesson, and you use those tools moving forward whenever you have to go into a meeting and have conversations with people. You should know a little bit about them. You should know a little bit about what they do, why they do it, why do they love it.
That's because you're a student, and it shows from your success. And I'm the same way. Like, you're studying more than it's more than I'm gonna put these cool shots into a story. There's layers to how it gets made and put out, and what goes into from exactly how you meet somebody to what you need to get it done, to how you get, the production of it, to get it built, to get it put together, then to get it, finalized, and to get it aired. People don't understand what goes into it. They're quick to give you an opinion on what they see, but they don't understand what goes into it.
Yeah. You know what I've tried really hard to do in my life that has worked for me, and that is, there's a lot of things I watch or I listen to or I read that I don't like, right? Yeah. It's very easy to then go talk to somebody when they're like, oh, did you see this show? And for you to go, yeah, I fucking hated it.
Yeah.
I started to kind of condition myself to think, what if I made that show? And somebody saying they fucking hate it. I didn't go in to make it bad. I went in there to make it as good as I can, and who knows what happened? Who knows, right? And if it's about talent, if it's about they didn't have the capacity to do it, they probably won't do it again. But when I started to really try to not criticize and to learn from things and to study it, like you said, and to pay attention. And the other thing I'll do is, like, if I watch something, sometimes somebody will post, I don't know, it pops up on your stream. It's not even somebody you follow, but on social media, whatever platform you're looking at, and you go, oh, that's cool. The tendency is like, you can like it, and maybe that's cool. What I started doing is, oh, what else did they do? And then if there's like 2 or 3 things that I think are cool, I fucking DM them and I tell them. And I'm like, yo, I just watched this and I watched that and I watched this thing. And that's really, I'm into it, man.
Yeah.
And the reason I do that isn't manipulative. It's like, because I put myself in their shoes. I'm like, can you imagine hearing from somebody?
Absolutely.
And then they're like, oh my God, you did the Dexter thing and you think my thing is cool. I'm like, me doing Dexter has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But you genuinely have some talent, because I'm sitting here looking at millions of things and your shit popping off.
Yeah.
And I think that energy is important.
It's everything, like literally everything you say. I'm glad you're saying it, because it's stuff that I've been working on myself the same way, like on what got to be done and just what you need to, you just got to, how you go for it, and the work ethic, and how the being a student of the game never ends, and how many layers to it. Like I get into trying to crack that because I see it, because I hate people getting over on me. So I try to learn what I could do to be in control of this situation. What could I do to be in control of this situation? So a lot of things you saying
learn
is
from the things you don't like.
Yeah.
You pay attention to the things you don't like and go, why don't I like it?
I'm on this literally exact same boat with what you just said. I literally been working on the last 2 years of my life where I'm like, I'm the first one to break down what I don't like about you. Now, shut up. Now, put yourself in that position. How would you feel? One, now look at it in that way as, okay, what were they thinking when they put that together? And then I see things as, yeah, it's just not what I like, but damn, no, it's cool. It's well done. It's played good. Wow, they could do it live. Wow, they do it, and then now I see it in a different, you know what it is? Unfortunately, being in a band jades you with a lot of stuff. Maybe the same thing if you were in front of the camera, it might fuck you up. Getting behind the camera, because being in the band messed me up. It took me away from being a fan. The competitive nature. Yeah, it's friendly competitive. Yeah, okay, whatever. But you have that. Since I got back and started doing the podcast and the shows, I could be a fan again. I could go and be like, yo, I like that. Yo, what's about, I like that. Yo, the show was fun. I don't talk like that to anybody. But I became, doing that kept me, back in touch with being a fan. And then I started looking at myself and I realized, I was turning into a hater. The one thing I hated. And I said, I'll never be a hater. And doing that stepped my game up, saying, why, instead of saying, yo, why they do that, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm more like, wow, they're doing good. Wow, if they could reach that, that means that roof got pushed up. Like, I look at Vinny Stigma, how far you could take me, even hardcore music, if you want to take it that far. People say, how far? Look at Stigma. He's writing the book on it. If you want to do that in that way, you could. It's just a point of grind, do what you do. When you do it because you love it, it's going to show. You know what I mean? You got that queen state of mind. It shows in the grind. I got one question before anything. This is what I really wanted to know, because this question goes into the same thing with music, and it goes into what you were doing filming, even if you got into editing and maybe the directing thing. It went from doing film to everything being digital. Like, did that affect you in any way, or were you... or was your part of the job not having to deal with that part of the editing? Or, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're hands-on with editing, people could complain about, like, I like doing tape or whatever. Then you could be the guy telling the person to edit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
where are you in that whole...
Yeah, I embraced it very early.
Okay.
I think I was... even Vampire Diaries, which was shot digitally, I didn't look at... a lot of old school filmmakers kind of looked at cinema and said, you know, it has to be on film.
That's why I say
quality,
this.
it's texture. I'm like, look, I'm a director. I would direct a stage play. I will direct a commercial, a music video. The medium for me is a tool. So if I can make a movie on my iPhone, I'm going to make a movie on my iPhone, and I can. So believe me, I'm always out there playing with it, you know, trying to figure stuff out. No, going digital was a tool that I think has inspired me. The technology that's out there today, the edit tools, and remember, I'm not an editor. I know how to edit, but I'm a director, and I love telling stories. Filmmaking is in my blood. I knew it from when I was 13 years old. It was just kind of this thing that kept pulling me in. So the medium was irrelevant to me. Yeah. There are some filmmakers I really admire who are purists and still think film is the way. That's great. Like, that's their thing, right? Like, that's how they think. It's never been a thing for me. It's always been an opportunity to make it easier, quicker, whatever the situation might be. So I embraced it early.
That's great, because that's one of the main questions I have, because the same thing happens with music. And I know a lot of guys that film because of, you know, the music, and a lot of people are filmmakers in our world too. And some of the new guys try to embrace the old school because they want to, you know, know those old school trades, which is cool. I'm glad I came up recording on tape, but I never want to do that style of recording ever again. That was torture, like straight up torture, like spending 8 hours to get one perfect take.
I will say the thing that I've told kids coming up who ask me, you know, they're not just asking how I got started. They ask me about process, and and I'm like, look, I feel lucky that I came up before there was digital. Yeah. Because like you we're recording a song and spending money on having to do it over and over and having to punch in the edit at the right time and all those things that you had to do on tape. When I was coming up and I had to shoot on film, I had to know exactly what I wanted. I had to know what I wanted it to look like. And I had to know if I was giving you direction, we rehearsed it. Because why? Because I couldn't just keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again. And I think the thing that, and again, this is purely my opinion, I think young filmmakers would learn a lot by challenging themselves to do one project on film, so they could see how important it is to really be prepared, to really know what you want. Because right now, you and I can call you up, we can go meet somewhere, and we could shoot something in a parking lot, and I could spend 5 hours with you and shoot 100 versions on my phone, and then come back and edit together something cool, right? But if we were shooting on a Bolex with film, we would have to talk about it. We'd have to know exactly what we're going to do.
Oh, hell yeah.
And we'd have to rehearse it and go, no, that would be cool, but what if we did it this way instead? Right now, we could let's do it that way instead. Let's try it this way. And then you cut it together. I do think there's something magical that we learned coming up about the hard way to do it. And I don't mean to sound like that guy who's like, I used to walk 100 miles. No, it's more just, it's all we knew, right? Yeah. And you went into record and you had to be tight. And if somebody fucked up, you give them the fucking look like,
It made your natural instincts be sharp, where nowadays it's still important, but you don't have to be as sharp. But you could still get a stale, you know, product, because you know people will feel it, no soul. But definitely, you know, I know what you mean. Like, even when you prepared, that's where you would put your soul in it, because you're going to prepare it a certain way you have it in your mind.
Well, you prepare and then you come in and do it with soul, right?
Yes, exactly.
You know exactly what you want to do. You know what it wanted to feel like, you know, and then you're free.
Yeah.
Then you're free to kind of do it.
Yeah.
There is something, I find something, and you said stale, cold, you know, like soulless in some of the stuff that is done today, because you just know that it was put together artificially.
Yeah.
You know, and and when I, and again, that is not a critique of the product. It's a critique of the process.
Yes.
Right.
I
Because
totally know what you
everybody
mean.
goes
Yeah.
into it. Everyone goes into it wanting to do something good. Truly the only people I tend to criticize or feel like, and when I say criticize, like I'm going to be vocal,
Yeah.
is when I see, there's two types of, there's the people who have entitlement, like who just feel like they should be huge,
Yeah.
and they haven't done any work. I challenge them to do some work, because that's not how life should be. And unfortunately, we live in a world of social media where that happens.
Yeah.
So a lot of young people come into it thinking, I don't have to try that hard. And the other thing is when they do it just because they see enough, they think they can be rich.
Yeah.
And I know I sound like one of these guys, but it's a truth. It's a truth
true.
in my world. It's a truth. I've had success in my life. I don't consider myself super wealthy. I'm not that guy. I take care of my family. I'm lucky enough to make money that way, doing what I love. But I've never gone and done something because I wanted to be rich.
Yeah. But that's why you've also been, you've had longevity, and and it's this show business. You could disappear easily.
Oh, for sure. I'm done with my show now. If I turn this around on my desk, all you see is like I'm hustling. What am I gonna do next?
Yeah, and that's just what I was gonna ask you. What was the last thing you just finished up with, and what's the next move for you?
So I just finished 2 shows. One for Apple called Bad Monkey. That'll be out next year, and then a show for HBO Max called The Girls on the Bus. That's 10 episodes, and that'll be out next year as well. So I have 2 shows coming out, and
That's dope.
I did the first season of this show called You on Netflix. And I'm gonna do the final season in January. So that's going to be the next show I do, but I'm developing a bunch of shows, original ideas with different writers. And it's always terrifying when you're freelance, because I think there's an assumption, even with my peers, when I talk to them, they're like, oh, you work all the time. I'm like, I work because I fucking get out there.
Yeah,
you have to work. So I'm doing You. I feel blessed that I have that coming up, because we're in a strike right now. I don't know if you know, but
and I heard, that's what I was wanting.
And then so when the strike is over and we move on, I'll do that. And then I don't know what I'm doing after that. One of these projects that I'm developing. I think somewhere in my future, there is something that is more rooted in the hardcore scene, in the Queens, there's something. I don't know what that story is though. I've tried many times. I've tried.
I know you mean.
It has to be the right thing.
I'm glad I was able to get you on, because one, again, you're definitely, like I said, that moment being in the studio for me, it's a key moment for me for what I do. This is, I connected to this being around. What I love being around is electronics and music and all that shit. And not only that, again, I do take pride in flexing with your name, you being one from Queens, not only from Queens, but being a hardcore guy from Queens and from New York. And not like, oh, yeah, this guy likes me. No, you were a hardcore kid, and the stuff that you've done is like, again, I take pride in bragging for you. You may have not known, but I was like, you know who that is? I go, that's Queens, Ezek, always mad love. The minute we talk about you, we're right away. We flex for you all the time. And not only that, your whole, like, even seeing it, I said, let me wiki this, let me look at it. I was bugging out just looking at it on paper.
It's funny you mentioned Ezek, because you and everybody in that scene, like I said today, if I hit play on my Spotify, he may pop up. You will pop up.
Yeah.
It's still a part of who I am. I just bought the Quicksand book. A book came out.
Oh yeah.
And I literally texted Walter pictures of it. I'm like, look what I just got.
Oh yeah.
Because I get excited about that. That's never going to change. And that's
and that's
it's a
what I
testament
love
to what you guys do. You know, your music has that kind of longevity.
You know, and the same thing what you do and where you're at. Again, this one I really wanted this with you, especially because again, the flex is important because there's no people like to tend to. We come from a very small scene, but that small scene is seen in different universes. Like people
in the world.
Exactly. And I like showing people like, look from like, I just saw Turnstile yesterday with Blink, Turnstile playing in Arena. I root for I remember playing with them, I root for that. When I see everybody talking about a Dexter or this show, I go, yeah, well, you know who did that? Oh, my man did that. I used to go to the studio, just that to be like, I take pride in that. And I know a lot of our people take pride in that. And I had to let people know. I kept telling you, everybody out there, I was texting you saying, we got to let people know Queens is in the building, And I know Ezek's going to love this because, again, Ezek's a fan of a lot of your stuff. And, the same thing, we all hung out besides this. And then later on in life, we saw, we were fans of what we did. I always know you did videos and stuff. But then later on, I was like, wow, again, I'm glad you were able to jump on here. In the future, I want to do something again with you because I think everything you said, man, really hit with me a lot because I'm exactly in the same page where on stuff I'm working at and just a mentality on work ethic and how to go about things. And I think what you said right here, even on this episode, a lot could help a lot of people that trying to come up, even do what you're doing, that they need to hear it this way because sometimes people have a different idea on you need this to be successful. You need this to be successful. You need this, and this. When, at the end of the day, you need to have love, passion for what it is, and you need to have that go hard or go home mentality is everything you just said. Again, from Queens to Dexter to who knows where else.
Dude, everything I just said, if you break it down, is in hardcore lyrics in the late 80s.
Exactly. And that's what even from how you just said, you getting Dexter. Yeah, no, call him. I want to get it. Let me in front of him. That's some hardcore shit. I used to walk up and down the line at CBGB's. Demise demo, 5 songs, $5, the hardest shit out. That was my line. But you know what? You had to sell yourself. I said, who better than selling yourself? I took pride. I thought it was hard. So people were like, word, this guy seems confident.
That's what I mean. But I remember that. That's what I say. It's in my DNA. Is it was put there because the people around me had the same way of thinking.
Yeah.
It was a scene of do it yourself, get it done. And we came from a small scene, but when I look at when you go on tour, come on, man, if you go to anywhere in Europe and you're playing these shows to hundreds or thousands of kids, that must be so incredible to know that you came from, Corona, Jackson Heights, playing at Bell Studios, and you're up there doing, and you didn't sell out. You're doing the same thing, right? That to me is a testament to all you guys, to Walter, to Civ, to look at Toby, man.
Definitely.
I follow every single one of you because I'm the same way. I'm always flexing about that. That's where I grew up. Oh, when whether it's there was a show recently in Brooklyn, Gorilla Biscuits, and people I see who are like, oh, I'm gonna go see Gorilla Biscuits. I'm like, I know those guys. Yeah. I take tremendous amount of pride in that, even though I haven't hung out with them or seen them in a minute.
Of course.
But yeah, man, look, and I appreciate you having me on. I really do. When I heard you had a podcast, I started putting it in my rotation.
Now I'm glad, and again, I really wanted this one, and it was like, for me, I had again, it took me back, and again, it's great for people to hear, and it's good to show an old school guy with new school love who's still in the mix, not just sitting back talking shit about the yesteryears. And, I'm in the same boat with you. We're still in the mix. We're still throwing punches. We're still being creative. And again, I want to get you on in the future so we could do some shit to get some like younger guys that are, because I know a lot of guys that are trying to do a self-financing film and a couple of things. We could probably get on and maybe, you know, we could.
Man, I'm happy to.
Pick your brain. For sure.
I love this. I love talking about my art and certainly my roots. So
Yeah,
anytime.
for sure.
You have
absolutely. Listen, I'm glad you were able to jump on. Marcos, everybody, go follow him. You already watch his shows. I don't got to tell you, but go watch him. Wikipedia him and you're going to be there for a while. So go Wiki Marcos. Listen, Bad Trip, Bell Studios, New York Hardcore. Listen, mad love to you. You know what's up. Shout out to your family. Shout out to Brazil. Shout out to Bell Studios again. I'll let you know when this drop, Marcos. Listen, we'll talk. One love. Thanks for jumping on. We out of here.
All right. Thanks, man.
Peace out.